What's going on everyone, Quasi here. Today I'm going to help you flash your keyboard with QMK software a little easier by showing you an alternative method to creating your QMK layout with minimal use of terminal or CLI. Before anything, you're going to want to ensure that your keyboard is indeed QMK compatible. You can do this in two ways. QMK.fm is the official website of QMK and it has a list of all supported keyboards. From here, you can use Ctrl F to try and find your keyboard. Another method is to simply look up your particular PCB and find out if it's listed as QMK compatible by the seller. However, do note, not all PCBs are listed as QMK compatible by the seller, such as my XD60/64, which originally comes installed with TKG or KLI firmwares. On a side note, my PCB is an alternative to the ever popular GH60 with perhaps more layout options, so subscribe to stay tuned for a review of this PCB and a build guide in the near future. Additionally, be sure to test that your PCB is fully working prior to continuing. Now that we know our PCB is indeed QMK compatible, I want to start by explaining a couple of things in regards to how the QMK setup process works so that you can apply this method to pretty much any QMK compatible PCB. There's a page dedicated to helping out new folks or first-time builders. I don't think it's entirely helpful, however, because it's based entirely on the command line interface for QMK, therefore not user-friendly in my opinion. Still, if something goes unanswered in this video, check out the guide or leave a comment down below. We also should know from this guide that QMK firmwares are built on a per PCB or per keyboard basis, and these builds are stored and updated on a GitHub repository for all QMK compatible hardware. Be careful and ensure that you're using the careful firmware as the basis of your layout. Okay, let's get started on the building process. First, go over to qmk.fm/toolbox and download the QMK Toolbox. This is the software we're going to use to flash the keyboard with our layout. At the bottom of the page, there's a link for the download which will take you to GitHub. I like to use the portable version, but you can use the installed version if you like. Once you've downloaded it, start it up and it will look something like this. Plug in your PCB now, and you should see it show up in QMK. If it doesn't, that's not entirely problematic, as it may just need to put in DFU mode. If it is the case that your PCB doesn't get automatically detected by the QMK Toolbox, you'll need to find out what microcontroller your PCB has. In my case, I have an Atmel Mega 32U4. It's visible usually on the PCB. I recommend doing some research on your particular PCB if you're stuck at this point. You should find your PCB keyboard in the drop-down menu and download the default build for your keyboard as a backup. Now it's time to head over to config.qmk.fm. This is an online configurator which will allow you to build your layout online without the need for any command line interface or coding. Start by finding your keyboard in the drop-down menu. Be sure to choose the correct revision here. Find a layout that is preferable to you or one that's close to the final layout that you want. If you can't find the right one, you can use the all layout and bind concurrent keys to the same input as I did here. Edit it as you like. Layer 0 is the most fundamental layer. It's your regular typing layer, so if you're trying to set up Dvorak, you do so by editing layer 0. On the left side of the key map, you can change the layer you're editing at this moment. Most people will only be using layers 0 and 1 at most. To set up an FN key for quick switching to layer 1 in practical use, go over to the Quantum tab and use the MO key and set it to 1 in the box. Side note, as you mouse over the keys, the bottom of the screen will show a tooltip. Be sure to go through these particular keys as you can customize your keyboard inputs to maximize your usability. Once you're done with your setup, change the layout name to whatever you like, and click this little download button here to download a JSON file. This is not the flash firmware, but it can be re-uploaded to this site to make updates to your layout. Next, we're going to click this to compile the files. This can take a minute, so give it some time. Once it's done, click this Download Firmware button. Finally, we have the firmware.hex file that we need to flash the keyboard. Let's switch back over to the QMK Toolbox. First, change the keyboard to the correct one as we did earlier. Ensure your PCB is detected and is here in the drop-down menu at the bottom. If you have multiple options here, it's probably best to unplug the other things to avoid accidentally flashing something else. Now, at the top, click Open and open the .hex file we downloaded just prior. Ensure you've selected the correct microcontroller. Now, in order to flash most PCBs, you need to put it in a special mode, often called DFU mode. For my XD60, it's as simple as pressing this physical button on the PCB. For some PCBs, there's a button combination to press. Then press flash and let the process complete. Don't remove the USB cable until it's complete. After that, you can unplug and replug the cable. Windows should recognize the keyboard again. At this point you're done, but it's worth opening up a keyboard testing software to ensure that you've correctly bound every input on your keyboard. So yeah, I hope this tutorial was helpful for those who enjoy building and customizing keyboards, but don't want to invest a ton of time into learning how to use the CLI for QMK, especially since it's quite antiquated in comparison to these GUIs. If this was helpful, I'd love if you dropped a like and maybe subscribed. If you have any additional tips or have a question, be sure to leave a comment down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.